Reddit, what are Americans not ready to hear?
All right, bringing back this old series. Here's some more helping non-Americans figure out America. I've been seeing a lot more of these pop up, and they're really long, so I'm gonna have to post them here. Can't really post them on TikTok.
1. You are all extremely close to not being a democracy anymore. You should be paying careful attention.
No, we're not. But the score pretty consistently throughout the Western world has gone down on the democracy index. The United States ranks 29 out of 76 democracies, on par with South Korea, France, Spain, Estonia, and Portugal. The electoral process is a huge factor in this, and I've brought up an issue with our electoral college in my previous videos. On the index, anything higher than a 6 is considered a democracy. The United States ranks 7.8, but I agree the United States should at the very least be 8.5.
2. Your gun laws are barbaric. Your country sees mass unaliving after mass unaliving, yet changes nothing. As a European, it's baffling to see the resistance to common sense regulations that could save countless lives.
Now, there actually are quite a few regulations in place. The problem is there's a lot of ways to get around them. The regulation that most non-Americans bring up the most is just an outright ban, which can never happen. It can never be implemented. A sign at how ineffective it would be, when police departments do rifle buybacks, people would just go and build them and then sell them to the police department for profit.
3. You'd all be thinner if your cities were designed to be walkable.
That's not true. If you take a look at the map where obesity in the United States is the worst, you'll see it's in rural areas. We have hundreds of walkable cities. I have an entire series on TikTok talking about them.
4. Your real enemy are the food companies that lobby the government to put preservatives and artificial sweeteners instead of real ingredients in your meals, not secret communists.
Now, most Americans know that this is a thing, but they don't really know the science behind it, which is why you see those videos on TikTok of people getting a bad watermelon and thinking for some reason Bill Gates grew it and it's made of rubber. The top comment is always, har har har, laughing in European, like they don't have the same exact issue going on over there. But they're so wrapped up in what Americans and what the United States is doing that their governments can just do that behind their back while they're lecturing us about this issue.
5. Pledging allegiance to your flag every morning is really strange. We had that in Europe 80 years ago. It didn't end up well for anyone.
Well, not everybody is Europe. We're not the only country to pledge our flag. They have a pledge in the Bahamas, South Korea, the Philippines, Singapore. I think pledging allegiance to some old dude with a crown on whose family used to also wear a crown is a lot weirder than pledging to your country.
6. America is only capitalist for poor people. Rich people live in a socialist state where they constantly get bailouts, subsidies, and debt forgiveness.
I am not going to argue with that one at all. According to Pew Research, this is one of the few things that Trump supporters and the progressive left agree with, that powerful interests manipulate the government.
7. You are no longer a role model country for the rest of the world.
That's not true. We are the lead player in the Western world. And we have countries like NATO members who are changing their domestic policy and spending more on defense to stay close with the US.
8. Working 80 hours a week isn't something to brag about.
So this needs context as well. If somebody works 80 hours a week and they love what they do, like they own their own business and they make a bunch of money, yeah, that's worth bragging about. But if you work 2 full-time jobs and you're like a clerk and you work underneath somebody and you need to make that much money to survive and you're bragging about how hard you work, yeah, that's a little different. Most people who actually brag about working that hard love what they do, make a bunch of money.
9. Profit-based healthcare is wrong on so many levels. 10. College shouldn't drain your entire savings account.
So I'm definitely going to meet in the middle here because the price of healthcare and the price of higher education in the United States is a bit ridiculous. But we also have the best specialized healthcare and the best universities in the entire world. Now, with that being said, according to the American Hospital Association, more than half of hospitals in the United States operated at a loss in 2022.
11. Your tipping culture is a scam. Tipping should not be a burden obligation of your customers.
It's not a burden or an obligation. You're not even asked unless it's like kind of written on a jar with a smiley face at a coffee shop. Like having a tip culture isn't all that bad. In fact, it's more beneficial to the workers than anyone else. We're not the only country with a tip culture. There's tip cultures throughout the world, from Canada to Palestine.
12. Nobody else in the world cares about American football.
That is not true at all. In fact, American football throughout the world is rising in popularity. In international football, 80 countries participate. Canada has their own version of American football, but most countries go off of the United States rules. Here's an American football league in Japan. Now they have a rule where they can only have a few American players per team. There's always like a funny dynamic. There'll be a 5'9", 180-pound Japanese linebacker blitzing on some 6'4" quarterback from Indiana. The NFL itself has had games in other countries and the stadiums fill right up, like in Germany, the United Kingdom, and Mexico.
13. You are not Irish or Italian or Dutch. You have an American birth certificate and passport.
I definitely get that, but have that energy when it comes to all Americans. You'll look at an Asian American or an African American, and when they say they're from the United States, it's always, right, but where are you really from? And then they're chastised when they don't know exactly which country their family came from in West Africa 400 years ago. So just be consistent with all Americans.
14. You may think of yourselves as the hero, but the amount of lives you have damaged, especially in the Middle East, outweighs any military aid you provide Western countries.
Now, if he said military and humanitarian aid, we would have a number. We just know for a fact that that wouldn't be true. But as far as military aid, it's incalculable. Because if that US military presence wasn't there, who knows what would happen and who knows how many lives would be affected by that. Taiwan, South Korea, the Philippines, Ukraine.
15. Your excessive amount of smiling does not come off as genuine.
Neither does being cranky and petulant all the time, no matter what. And this is about non-Americans, but there's really only one place in the world that complains about smiling, and that would be Europe. Like, no one else is that fucking cranky. That's ridiculous.
16. Not using the metric system is stupid.
Thinking that somebody else using a different system that's completely fine is stupid is stupid.
17. People should not hear your private conversation from 20 meters away. Be quieter in public, please.
Now, you can kind of sort of tie this in with them not knowing that African Americans are American or Asian Americans are American. They'll think Australians are American if they're speaking loudly in public. And they'll be like, good eye, mate! And like, oh, there goes the Americans again. So when it comes to telling the difference between a Canadian and American, they'll never be able to tell the difference. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys take a look at the merch store. The link is in my bio on TikTok.